How is it going, everybody? It's Thursday night, and you know what that means. It's time for your Big Gold Belt Wrestling podcast. We got the two-man power trip here tonight, and these always end up being fun shows because we get to be fast and furious and go from topic to topic. So buckle in. We got a lot to get into. We're going to talk about Bad Blood and everything that happened there last weekend. We're going to talk about this new Crown Jewel Championship. What is up with that? Does it even matter? We'll get into that too. And AEW WrestleDream goes down this weekend in Tacoma. So much to get into, all that and more. Get ready, folks. Your Big Gold Belt Wrestling podcast starts right now.
Big Gold Belt, 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 Big Gold Belt. All I really want is that Big Gold Belt, 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 Big Gold Belt. All I really need that Big Gold Belt.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here with us tonight for your Big Gold Belt Wrestling podcast. I am Will here with the giant crab Jamal. Sometimes we have these shows with just the two of us, and we like to think of them as the two-man power trip because we'll just get into all kinds of stuff, and this will be very fast and furious. And heck, we'll get into a whole bunch of stuff tonight because we will have the time without so many people here to break all kinds of stuff down. So I am looking forward to this one. Glad you're here with us. How are you doing this week, Jamal? It's been a crazy week with weather around the country and stuff.
Yeah, man. I was just talking to a friend in Tampa who currently is without power, and amongst the 3.5 million people that are without power in Florida as of about an hour ago. And if you are recovering from all of it, whether you're in from Helene or from the flooding in Carolinas and Tennessee, the situation down in Florida, or extreme drought or fire or wherever the hell is going on, even if it's just cloudy and you're having a bad day, you'll get over it. You'll get past it. You'll get around it. You'll go under it, whatever you need to do, but you'll move past this and get back to doing something better. But yeah, that's been a thing. And then of course, selfishly, the Mets have been having an incredible postseason run so far. Whatever happens, win, lose, or draw, I could not have been more shocked, surprised, and proud that what they've been able to put together, mostly because they beat Philadelphia. So, let's go Mets. But yeah, it's an interesting time, especially in wrestling, because WrestleDream is this weekend. The new Saudi belt looks interesting, but I thought they already had a Saudi belt. What happened to that one? It's a lot of little things going on, and then of course Dynamite, it's their go home show, and nobody watched, and that's an interesting thing to happen.
Yes, we will get into that for sure. All that and more. But yes, folks, anyone down in Florida, you are in our thoughts. Crazy 24 hours down there with Milton coming through. Heck, the original WWE Thunderdome had the roof ripped off it.
Yeah, I mean, like
Tropicana Field.
Yeah, God is obviously a Marlins fan because she ripped the roof off of Tropicana Field, and they're going to have to figure that out before March. And that's not, that's something that he didn't plan on doing, but they're going to figure it out before March. And then, of course, they're building a new stadium at that site by 2028. But hell, they don't need a roof. Just keep the party, just take it off, keep the party going. The thing about that, and I know we're talking about baseball now, but they don't have a drainage system for Tropicana Field. It's not built that way. So they need to, it's not like a football stadium where the water can drain through the stadium and then out to pipes and then be evacuated and recycled or whatever. It's just concrete under the Trop. So it flooded, and it needs to be, all of the field needs to be redone, and all of the concourses and drainage need to be done. And that's obviously the one image from Uncle Milty, the hurricanes, that people are going to remember if you had to put a postcard, flashpoint moment of that thing. But everybody got varying degrees of precipitation. Some people just lost power. Some people's houses are floating in the Gulf of Mexico right now. So, if you can help, do so. If you can't help, cool. If you can't be productive, cool. If you want to be unproductive, shut the fuck up. because nobody needs that right now. People need a lot more than thoughts and prayers. They need, time is what they need, and the ability to get the work done to get people back to living in Florida. I mean, it's already bad enough to live in Florida. Now they got to go through all this bullshit too with the hurricanes that have been coming back to back. And there's another Hurricane Leslie in the middle of the Atlantic too, that if it continues west, it's, looking like Miami, but that may or may not happen. So, hurricane season's not going out like a lion, not a lamb.
There you go. Like we said, folks in Florida, hang in there. You are in our thoughts. So let's get to it. We got some stuff to get into tonight. So we'll start at the weekend and work our way forward, as we often do on here, put things in order. So last weekend, WWE Bad Blood went down in Atlanta. They had all that Atlanta themed stuff for the show with the fancy opening. Of course, they had the big Cody and Roman Reigns summit at Georgia Bulldog Stadium or Georgia Tech Stadium. Really did that. Yeah. So lots of Atlanta personal themed stuff on this show. And Saturday night I didn't get to see it till the next day because I was busy on Saturday, but there was definitely some highlights on this show and definitely some things on this show that I guess stood out more than others. So 5-match show like WWE has been doing recently opened up with Hell in a Cell, and there was lots of talk going into this that they were heavy teasing that there would be blood. CM Punk was making it very clear he was going to make Drew McIntyre bleed. They were doing everything in the world to try and tell you this ain't going to be like these PG Hell in a Cells we've had for a long time, where nothing really happens. It's just weapons and stuff, and it doesn't have that level of violence. They had you really thinking it was going to happen, and you never know until the show actually gets here. And lo and behold, 31 minutes and 25 seconds later, they went for a long damn time. CM Punk and Drew McIntyre, I will say, safely brought back Hell in a Cell to its former levels of violence. Excuse me. There was definitely blood. There will be blood, and there was definitely blood. There was weapons. There was some really stiff, shots in there between Drew McIntyre eating a toolbox to the head that opened him up or required a bunch of staples. That was kind of a bit much. A sickening bump that he took on the side of the stairs trying to do the Claymore. That seemed honestly was one of the nastiest falls I've seen in a long time in wrestling. But they definitely lived up to what Hell in a Cell used to be, where it was violent, it was bloody. I like that they didn't go outside the cage. They kept it in the cage. There was tons of crap under the ring, but they didn't do climbing up on the roof or none of that stuff. But they had an old school violent cage match for the first time in ever in WWE. So I'm not a huge CM Punk fan. Drew McIntyre, I've been very pleased with his work this year, but I have to give credit to both of them. However they got this done, whether it's the new ownership or whatever that's more relaxed about things, I don't know how it happened, but they brought back Hell in a Cell to what it used to be. That's first thing I got to say about that.
Damn. Okay, so them opening up the pay-per-view, you said that was the right call.
Yeah, well, I guess because last week we talked about this. We definitely talked about what was going to close the show. Was it going to be Hell in a Cell? Big, it was the big gimmick match of the show, or would it be the tag match with Cody and Roman? And universally across the board, everyone on here, Celis, Damien, everyone's like, it's got to be Cody and Roman. It's in Atlanta. It's their turf. It's going to be the homecoming, so it's got to be them, and that's what they did. So, given it couldn't main event, if it wouldn't get a main event, I think this was absolutely the place to put it on the show. Open hard and finish big too, and then have when there's only 5 matches, you don't have a lot of options for where to place it. So I liked that it opened the show.
Right. I mean, it was either or from the beginning, because we know that the other matches weren't really. I mean, to be fair, they could have a 1-2 co-main event type of a situation, but I don't see what else could open the show other than maybe Rhea Ripley versus Liv Morgan.
It would have had to be.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how that shapes out, but good. I'm glad that was what it was. It was only 5 matches. How long was the show?
With the commercials, from what I saw on the thing, I think it was just over I think it was about 3:20.
Ooh,
Seemed like
okay.
I didn't watch it live, like I said. So the next day, it was real easy for me to fast forward through that stuff and
Yeah.
just be like, match, match, match. So I burned through it really quick. From what I saw, I think the play time was about 3.5 hours or 3:20. It was around that. It was definitely just over 3. It wasn't up in no 4-hour range, but that is something I saw people griping about over the weekend, was that there was too much time between matches, too much. There's a Triple H segment that
I
happened that we'll
mean,
get into later, but like we
am I
know that.
misremembering? Because
Mhm,
like WWF pay-per-views, maybe before the year 2000,
mhm.
I don't remember them being all 4 hours.
No, there were
I,
3.
yeah,
They were
I
3 hours.
remember them
MNW
being
used to be, everything used to be around 2 hours and 50 minutes used to be the
right.
formula.
So, I mean, if I remember correctly, Sunday Night Heat was at 7. The pay-per-view
Yep.
started at 8, and then it
Yeah.
ended around 10:55.
Yep. Exactly.
And it
Exactly.
seems like even though it's 5 matches and maybe you cut down, you cut 10 minutes from each match that went over 20 and you put in 2 more matches, you get 7. That sounds like a very late 90s WWF type of pay-per-view structure.
Mhm. Yeah.
And how they would have a card go, and then of course your main event was the main event, and that one went as long as it wanted. But I don't. I mean, and obviously, if you're like, because we're old enough to remember, but then again, we're talking about 30 years ago.
Oh,
So
yeah.
there's a whole generation of fans that don't know anything other than 2 night pay-per-views or 7-hour WrestleManias
3 hours of Raw, and they're, like,
or three
freaking out
hours
because
of Raw.
this week
And
was the
that's
first 2 this was the first 2-hour Raw this week, and I definitely saw people being like, "Raw needs to be 3 hours, it's not enough time. 2 hours
well,
is too short," and I'm like, "No, don't you dare try
right.
to put that on
So
me."
as you say that, that really reminds me of the fact that Raw was from 9 to 11,
Mhm.
and then the pay-per-view was 3 hours, which made it special because you felt like you
Right,
were getting something more, even though you were paying $60 for it.
right.
And you were paying $60 back then,
Yeah,
$50 back then, and WrestleMania was like 70 back then. Every month, every time, 12, 13 times a year.
right.
So now that it's on Peacock and people can just stream it or save it for later, and that was also a thing too. Pay-per-views came and went. If you didn't watch it by like Wednesday of the following week, it went away.
Yeah, you have to wait for, like, the videotape to come out, right?
Yeah, and then that
Anything.
was another $30 that you had to buy.
Yeah.
So I just like, it's just the damnest thing of how like way back when, 30 years ago, 35 something years ago, we're thinking, you know what, this we could do this better. It's whatever. And then now that seemingly the grass will be greener because we have access to everything at
Right.
the tip of our fingertips. And yet people are complaining that there's only 5 matches on the show. Or people are complaining that the pay-per-views are not long enough, or that Raw isn't 3 hours, or that they missed the overrun, or whatever the case is. It's just like, damn, I don't know where that middle ground is, but I do like these more, and this is what we said last week. I do like the idea of these more pointed pay-per-views where the storylines that you want to evolve are there. The rest of the stuff happens on SmackDown or Raw. It gives you a reason to watch the other shows. You don't have to blow everything off in the pay-per-view. It can be what it needs to be, and you get a reason to pay for it because to be fair, pay-per-views are still pay-per-views around the world, just not in the US and in Canada, I guess. But it's a or wherever you have a WWE TV deal. But damn, that is interesting. And at 5 matches, 3 hours and 20 minutes, that sounds like a takeover, versus a pay-per-view. But
Yeah.
and yeah, obviously they could have squeezed in a match or two, take a little bit here or there. But
Yeah, it's all about
but
how
I
you
like
use the
that.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
I was talking with someone about that this week, and I was like, it's not to me, it's not a matter of the number of matches. It's how you're allocating the time. And I think I love the 3-hour format. I like sticking to that. So it's like how you're going to use that 3 hours. It doesn't have to be 5 matches. It could be 6 matches. It could be 7 matches. But it's just a matter of how you chop it up. We had the opener was 31:25. Like I said, the middle part of the show, they went around, see, with 14 minutes, 12 minutes, another 14. So nothing longer than 15 minutes for the 3 middle matches at the show. And then the main event was just under 26. So, and of course, a big chunk of that, of course, is going to be intros between Cody and Roman and all that. So probably make that whole thing probably 45 minutes in the end between that and the post-match stuff they did with Dwayne returning, which we'll get into in a moment. But yeah, it's just a matter of how you're using the time. I think so many people are focused on the match count, where it's like, you can make some of those matches shorter. And that's the thing, back in the day, yeah, you might have a 3-hour show with 9, 10 matches on it, but very few of those matches were going to go over 10 minutes. Most of them were going to be like 5, 6, 7-minute matches, very quick. That's how it was back then. And your big featured main events, those would be the ones that go maybe 12, 15. But rarely.
That's really what it was. Like, whoever was hot got 15 minutes. The main event got 20, and maybe they had one other like co-main event title match or something like that got an appreciable amount of time. The rest were 6 minutes on pay-per-view. Deal with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And before that was Heat, which was just basically the pre-show, and that was it. The only time really that everybody kind of got like time was WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And maybe SummerSlam. But other than that, it was just like, no, you need to, hit your mark and be out. So so I like that. I like that they keep it going. As in with the 3-hour Raw, 2-hour Raw also. I like that too. With this show though, because I didn't watch the show at all. I would have watched it live, but baseball. Right. You have the other matches. And we talked about how because they are using their time more sparingly, and putting exactly what they need on the show and nothing more, is there a match or is there a storyline or a match that could have happened on this pay-per-view that kind of got snuffed because there's so much of a time constraint on it now?
Well, we talked about it last week that the World Heavyweight title match between Gunther and Sami Zayn was held for Raw the next night. Instead of doing it here, a lot of people were taking issue with that because it's the World Heavyweight title that should be on the show. Why are you doing that on Raw? And like I said, we got into the idea of, look, with these big TV contracts now, they need to have big things on Raw and SmackDown and NXT for that matter. So they're spreading everything out. So everything's not necessarily happening on, the pay-per-view. So that's the obvious one, is the next night you had a big world title match that could have been on here instead. But otherwise, they had 2 matches that played into the Judgment Day, between a Damian Priest Finn Balor match and then Rhea and Liv Morgan, ongoing Judgment Day drama there. So they had that. I mean, you could have fit in like maybe something for the U.S. title, could have done something with old LA Knight, since he's been doing stuff on SmackDown. The U.S. title wasn't on there. Jey Uso just won the Intercontinental title, but they did stuff with him on Raw the next night. So they're purposely spreading stuff out. I mean, this show was all about the Hell in a Cell and the Cody and Roman tag match. That was the focus of the show. And in a lot of that's the WWE formula. That's what usually tends to be on these shows, where it's like you have 1 or 2 big focal points and everything else is just, it's there. But you have your 1 or 2 big focal points that are the draw for the show. And in this case, it was like, we're doing Hell in a Cell and Roman Reigns is returning and he's going to team up with Cody Rhodes. That was the deal. The two bookends that were on this thing. And then as we discovered in the main event, we might as well switch to that now. So you had your Cody and Roman main event. The return, how's Roman Reigns going to interact with the bloodline since he's returned? Him facing off with Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu and all this. And the Tongans come in and they have their big match. We have the return of Jimmy Uso towards the end of the match. This be the first next step in the bloodline, kind of reuniting the original bloodlines. So Jimmy Uso returns. And then the little extra surprise cherry on top to close the night as a big surprise, Dwayne shows up. The Rock suddenly shows up at the end of the show. First time we've seen him since WrestleMania. Just comes out, raises an eyebrow, has that People's Championship he was carrying with him back at WrestleMania, but just kind of gives everyone the stink eye. Does a motion of 1, 2, 3, which a lot of people are reading into, but doesn't say anything, and that's it. So they had a little extra twist there at the end with, in a lot of ways, between Roman's return and Dwayne with The Rock showing up, this was kind of like the continuation of the WrestleMania storylines that they've had on the back burner since Mania here in the beginning of October, or suddenly circling back to them. So they had a lot of extra stuff in that main event. I mean, anytime they can get The Rock to show up, I figure that's kind of a all right. Get all the extra crap out of the way. The chairman of the board's here. He gets to do whatever he wants. Clearly,
Right. Okay. I mean, it's interesting that that's a thing because I heard that The Rock did something at WrestleMania, and I mean not at WrestleMania, Bad Blood rather, and it's kind of like thinking ahead. These moments, he's basically is a walking Money in the Bank, in that only thing he has to do is hit the music, walk out in some silk, printed gaudy thing, make a couple hand movements, and then walk to the back. And that's all he's really going to do until WrestleMania. But realistically, the question is, and we asked this last year, do we need him at WrestleMania? They're building something, towards that, and that's fine. I don't know if I need them to carry this on for the next 6 months.
That's a long darn time.
That is a long time for him to just hover as a Money in the Bank and just pop out and do nothing.
Yeah. Now let's talk about this, because the reaction I was seeing this week, God, this was blowing up all over. Because I said he made a motion of 1, 2, 3. That's all he did. He didn't say anything other than raise the eyebrow, and that was it. He just did that from the entranceway. People are reading into the 1, 2, 3 as, could this be he's signifying a triple threat for WrestleMania? Him, Cody, Roman Reigns. Since Cody and Roman Reigns were in the ring. And obviously they're already doing they also, while they were in the ring, they had the moment where, Cody's got the belt. Roman's looking at that. Hey, that's my baby. I told you once we were done with this, I'm coming for my baby. Meanwhile, The Rock's here giving everyone the stink eye. So lots of talk this week about people not being, if it's a triple threat come WrestleMania. Is that the move? A lot of people don't seem to want that. I don't know. I'm hearing a lot of people that are like, no, they want The Rock versus Roman like was supposed to happen last year. And then there's the flip side of that. Well, or is it Cody versus The Rock? Or like you said, do you put them all together and make it all 3 in 1?
Who suddenly decided that it was The Rock versus Roman last year? I mean, that kind of came out of nowhere. And
that was the press conference where we're going to have our ultimate Samoan the head of the table match.
Right, but that was the thing. Was like, wait a minute, didn't Cody win the Royal Rumble or something? Like, wait a minute,
that was the problem.
This is already a foregone conclusion. But people just took that and ran with it, and I think, honest to God, they're if they go down this road, then what? Because now, let's say The Rock wins. Let's say they do a triple threat or they do 1-on-1, and The Rock wins. Do you really want The Rock to be the champion for the rest of the summer?
Right.
Or do you really want The Rock to be a transitional champion between WrestleMania and SummerSlam, or WrestleMania and Money in the Bank, or something like that? How many title defenses do you think he's legitimately going to have? If you think Brock Lesnar was, on a crazy schedule for his championship reign, what the hell kind of schedule do you think you're going to get out of The Rock?
Right.
So I just saw the video as Bad Blood goes off. He does the thing, and then he kind of does the thing under the chin, like kind of a derogatory, thing. I wonder, and that's people seem to just already have the conclusion that The Rock has turned heel again, and now Roman's suddenly this face. When do we really expect, it's. I think part of the problem is, and this is why I don't care, they're doing their own show within the show, no matter what. And that's always been a problem for me. They made up with the heavyweight championship or something like that to give to Seth Rollins, and that was over
on Raw. Yeah,
right. So I don't see an option where if Roman, The Rock, or Roman or The Rock takes the belt and it makes for compelling television. Because The Rock's not there full time. Roman's not going to be there full time. And Cody's already the champ.
And Cody's having to live in the shadow of the bloodline. It's been the case the whole time.
Right. I mean, Cody is basically Sami Zayn this year. So, and you know, so what? Other than Cody won the title, you know, do we really want The Rock and or Roman to be champion again when they could just, you know, not necessarily fizzle out the bloodline, because I do believe that the bloodline's a hot, you know, thing they have going. I also believe that they know the Solo isn't it. I also believe that they know that they have other things like Judgment Day that are happening. That's a really, you know, hot thing. But I mean, I just want nothing more than somebody else, somebody fresh, to be interjected in this and say, I don't really give a shit about what y'all going on. I want that belt too. And if that person happens to be Gunther, cool. Shit, I'd love to see Gunther versus The Rock or Roman or Cody. If that person happens to be Xavier Woods, has the year of his life, and we get Xavier Woods versus The Rock at WrestleMania, that sounds insane. But but I want something than just, oh God, I hope they don't do this, and then they do the thing that we hope they don't do.
Yeah, it's so far off right now that I'm like, who knows what the hell WrestleMania be? Because hell, when they did that press conference last year, it's like, oh, we're gonna have the Samoan head of the table match, and then quickly they were like, oh, fans aren't going for this. We got to keep Cody in here. So that it's too far off to like assume a triple threat at this point.
Right.
That might be their idea today, but their idea today ain't etched in stone. Hell, at this point, it's a hell of a lot smoother. The big thing right now is like, okay, now at Jimmy's back, I think the more, you know, immediate thing is, are we on the road to Bloodline versus Bloodline at War Games for Survivor Series? Since we're slowly getting, okay, we got Jimmy back, got to get Jay in the fold, maybe get Sammy in the fold. How they, you know, are we gonna get all those pieces together to do that at Survivor Series in Vancouver? So that's a lot more sooner. Hell, that's at least before the end of the calendar year. We got that coming up.
Because people are concerned about WrestleMania when we haven't even gotten through Survivor Series, let alone the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, hell, we haven't got to the move to Netflix yet or any of that.
Well, there's that too. And I do wonder, you know, as that happens, just before the Royal Rumble happens, we're going to have a conference about what we're doing about January, because WWE moving to Netflix. We usually take our hiatus in January. We got to sit down with the boss man and hash that out, because that's
probably we got to cover the Netflix.
We got to cover it.
Yeah,
we got to cover
after that, maybe break after that. But
yeah, but you know, but I do think that you know, the Rock carrying the FTW title basically isn't necessarily that's not it. That just ain't it. And I think that that's kind of the thing too, is that I don't know who they would have that would be that person that would be at that level to insert them into this. I know a damn sure ain't Goldberg. I know that you know, or anybody else that they have out there that, you know, either is due a proper retirement match or something. But then again, that does make me thinking about WrestleMania. What if they got Chris Jericho, whose contract with AEW, I want to say, ends before WrestleMania? What if they made a move like that to get somebody in there? What if Ricky Starks, who is a friend of Cody Rhodes, who is, you know, kind of a known guy, maybe fell out of favor in AEW a little bit, but if Ricky Starks jumps over to WWE, friend of Cody, jumps in there, I don't know if his name by himself is big enough to do a thing, but this would be the perfect platform for him to be introduced to WWE. That would be a huge deal to have him inserted into this thing, because Cody's going to need backup.
Yeah,
the dog.
Cody's a man by himself. Lord knows, I've heard people saying that is he going to be honorary member of the Bloodline or something just to give him something to do, and I hope not. I don't need Cody being propped up as like a member of the Roman Reigns bloodline. That don't work for me.
Right. You know, they're only allowed one in, and that one is Paul Heyman. That's okay. You know, they filled their quota.
There we
But
go.
yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. But we're still talking about something that won't happen for another in April. 6 months, 7 months. So let's just get through Survivor Series first, basically.
There you go. Me and Grayson saying Rock the heel bloodline versus Roman's bloodline. I mean, that's where this is headed. We're gonna get that for sure. It's just a matter of is it gonna be War Games? Is it gonna be Survivor Series? Or that's where this is
I mean,
all
I think
going.
for Survivor Series, that's probably the way to go.
I mean, the only other possible War Games thing could be something involving the 2 Judgment Days. And that
Is Elimination Chamber still before WrestleMania, or is this after now?
that would be February.
Okay.
February, yeah. That'd be the last show before WrestleMania. Yeah.
Okay.
Between Rumble and WrestleMania would be when they'll do an Elimination Chamber.
Yeah. So
Right.
there are plenty of opportunities to do something.
Oh, absolutely. All right, here's what we're doing. Let's take our halftime break. When we come back, we will talk about this new Crown Jewel Championship that Triple H unveiled at Bad Blood. As we didn't get to talk about that. What is the deal with that thing? Since it's kind of the Saudi Arabian Championship, or however they're going to present this thing. We'll also get into AEW WrestleDream this weekend, and who knows what else. We got some time, and it's just the 2 of us here tonight, so we're going to keep things moving. Stay with us, folks, here, Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast. We'll be back right after this.
A little birdie told me, everybody, that you may be interested in doing some sponsorship and advertising opportunities with us here at Big Gold Belt Media. You know what? You might as well, because we are the golden standard for all of your media needs. Why would you want to go anywhere else? Besides, all of your pre-roll ads, your mid-roll ads, as well as your on-air reads are going to be done by me, Damian G. Yeah, professional broadcaster, Damian G. We do all types of social media promotions. That means your podcast, your IG, your Facebook, your Twitter, and your business website all get shouted out on our network here at Big Gold Belt Media, where we cover wrestling, movies, comics, and more. And you can find out more information and make those inquiries, kids, because, limited time offer here at biggoldbeltgroup@gmail.com. Again, that is biggoldbeltgroup@gmail.com. Why would you want to go anywhere else? I wouldn't. Well, I work here, but I still wouldn't even if I didn't. So again, Big Gold Belt Media for all your sponsorship and advertising opportunities, your podcast, your IG, your Facebook, your Twitter, all of your social media platforms, as well as any business website you want us to promote on our show. biggoldbeltgroup@gmail.com, and let them know Damon G sent you.
Thanks so much for being with us here tonight on the Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast. Lots to talk about. Bad Blood in the first half of the show. We're going to get into some more wrestling here in a second. The boss man hit me up while we were on our little break there for a second. I got to promote this tweet real quick because your friends at Big Gold Belt Media have a little something for you, a little contest going on the page. So what you're going to want to do, go to the social medias at Big Gold Belt, where you can always find us. There is our Alien Romulus digital code giveaway going on right now.
Ooh.
2 lucky people will get to relive the fight or flight rush epic sci-fi thriller. To enter, repost the tweet, follow Big Gold Belt Media, tag a friend, and comment with your favorite alien moment or gift. The winner will be announced on Monday night. So this is your chance to get an Alien Romulus digital code giveaway that easily from your friends here at Big Gold Belt Media. So check out at Big Gold Belt on X, and you can get on that tonight. So yes, indeed, boss man giving us a little something there to promote from the show this evening. So let's change gears here, because this is a weird one. This came out of nowhere. I didn't hear any rumblings of this. Just popped up, and Lord knows people have thoughts on this. At Bad Blood, in the middle of the show, Triple H comes out, and he's on a table in the ring with a big cover on it, and we've been seeing a lot of this lately. So right away, it was like, oh, there's a belt under there. We know this. He's been unveiling a lot of belts lately, between the new NXT championships. He just showed up on the CW premiere and the tag belts they brought in recently. So lots of new belts going around. The trick here was he announced the new Crown Jewel Championship. So what is the Crown Jewel Championship? So our next show on the horizon will be WWE Crown Jewel from Saudi Arabia, as they've had for years now. But here's the twist that they're doing this year. They are going to have 2 matches for the inaugural Crown Jewel Championship. So what is the Crown Jewel Championship, you ask? It's almost a remix of what they used to do at Survivor Series. They're going to have a match between the WWE Champion and the World Heavyweight Champion. So as of today, that would be Cody Rhodes and Gunther representing both those belts. And then the same thing on the women's side with the WWE Women's Championship and the WWE World Heavyweight Women's Champion. I guess World Women's Championship. They don't call that one heavyweight. So on that side of the bracket, it would be Liv Morgan and Nia Jax as of today. They're going to have 2 matches, champion versus champion, but not with either of their actual belts on the line. The winners will be awarded the Crown Jewel Championship that he unveiled. And it's a big old gaudy thing, tons of diamonds on it and stuff. And the most blinged out title we've seen by far. Reminds me of the old Mid-South North American title, which is just huge. It's like cover your ribs and stuff. Gigantic belt. And apparently this will not be defended. It's kind of going to be like a once a year invitational thing for Saudi Arabia. So in that respect, I'm okay with it. It's not like it's becoming a new world heavyweight title. It's kind of a bragging rights thing more than anything else. Now, Lord knows, I immediately saw people being like, what's the point? Who cares? Why are we wasting our time with this? And I don't know. I'm kind of like, they need to do something on these Saudi shows. It's something clearly for that. And if it doesn't go any further than that, and it's a once a year thing, I don't really see any harm in it. It's it's kind of, it is what it is. It doesn't bother me that much. It just, I'm not jazzed up about it, but I'm not offended by it either, is where I'm at. I don't know. Crab, your thoughts on the Crown Jewel Championship?
Well, I think you're absolutely right, and that there needs to be something to give the Saudi shows a little bit more heft other than just being in Saudi Arabia. That novelty is long worn off. The show is the show. We've been calling it a glorified house show for a few years now, and now we need something to elevate it from a glorified house show. And also, I think that these international events have been really pushing the hand of WWE to make the Saudi shows bigger than they are. I just happened, while we were thinking about Bad Blood. Bad Blood is the only regular, for lack of a better word, because I'm old, pay-per-view in the U.S. this year. The Royal Rumble and the Big Four, I'm not counting those. So the other ones, Elimination Chamber was in Perth, Backlash was in France, the King and Queen of the Ring was in Saudi Arabia, Clash at the Castle was in Scotland, Money in the Bank was one of the Big Five, so I'm not going to count that one. Then Bash at Berlin, then you have Bad Blood, Survivor Series is one of the Big Five, and then you have Crown Jewel back in Saudi Arabia on November 2nd. Every other, Bad Blood is the only pay-per-view that's just a regular, non-essential B++ pay-per-view, and that just happened to be in Atlanta. Okay, cool. Everything else was an international destination event. And if you're Saudi Arabia, you're going, well, damn. You saw what they did in southern France when they were going nuts for the Usos. Well, hell, you saw what they did in Scotland at the arena for Clash at the Castle. What do we look like now? Just another destination. So I like the belt. It doesn't have to mean anything, but it does give the show a little bit more heft, and it needs it. I don't know, and this is the thing. I don't think they renew their contract for another 5 or 10 year deal with the Kingdom after this is done, largely because they don't need to, because as we've seen, especially this year, they can take the show internationally. It still resonate with people, both home and abroad. And I think it's all good after that. So if you're the Saudis and you know that this deal is coming to an end sooner than later, I think they're in their 7th year out of 10 right now.
Something like that. A good number of years at this point.
Right.
Been going for a while.
So then you're kind of like, well, hey, what are you going to do to make us feel special again? And they've tried everything. They brought out The Undertaker. They gave us Brock Lesnar. They've done all of these different things. They don't have that option anymore. So now the next thing we got to do is just bring in that shiny belt. Now, of course, with that, do they still use the other belt that Mansoor won of more than a few years ago? Or was that just a one and done thing?
Yeah, between that and the Braun's greatest Royal Rumble title that he had for that
Right.
little bit that they did back in the day. Now, in a lot of ways, now we got the comments coming up here. We got, I'm going to say it's SmackDown H9 on YouTube. Why no U.S. Champ versus Intercontinental Championship? That's a good point. We're doing the women's title and we're doing the men's. Okay, hell, you could do a tag team. You could do that too. In some ways, you can kind of make this kind of like an all-star game type of thing, where it'd be like, okay, we're going to take, the different champions versus each other, and maybe you make that the hook. I don't know if you necessarily need to do that this first year, but I don't hate it. It's kind of like a one-off, like, we're going to do this thing. We'll have this ceremonial championship for it. You get this big gaudy belt, but it's not a title you got to defend. It's not replacing the belts you already have. That are the focal point the rest of the year. It's just kind of a bragging rights thing. And I'm looking at it right now. It's like Gunther and Cody, since that's the match as it stands right now. I'm looking at that and I'm like, I really want to see Gunther get that and be like, have that kind of like be a feather in his cap as like,
Right.
I faced the great Cody Rhodes and I beat him and I'm the crown jewel champion. And then, they eventually meet up down the road since Gunther's never been WWE champion. He has a win over Cody, and he can say he was crown jewel champ, despite the fact that he's never beaten him for the WWE title.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it just kind of feels a lot like, not exactly, but like King of the Ring, for example, where it doesn't mean anything until it does. And to the point of, Gunther should win because of the fact that he would say that he would have a one-up on Cody in a preseason match, basically. Yeah. Because it's not.
They'll do more for him than it would do for just adding another pleat to Cody's cape if you give it to Cody.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. It would be like, oh, this is like a good preseason match. It's a, it doesn't count. It doesn't really mean anything. And then, of course, if Gunther wins, it means everything because he's the first ever, crown jewel champion and so on and so forth. To be world heavyweight champion versus the top champions is kind of interesting, instead of a mid-card, champion, or rather, honestly, all of the champions in a tournament, in a singles tournament. So that could be a thing that's interesting too, because even if you had, what if you had the two tag team champions on opposite ends of the bracket meet at the finals? Not that has to happen, but it's just like, that would be a very different spin on a pay-per-view that they already do called Night of the Champions. So they've kind of exhausted a lot of their options if they want to create something truly new. And the belt, again, it doesn't mean anything until it does. So I'm not mad at it. I think the belt's pretty. It's, are they selling replicas of it? Because, that's a thing that people need to have.
Dude, they do. The Lord knows they sell replicas of everything. So I'm sure we'll get there. I'm sure we'll. By the time we get to a crown jewel at the beginning of November, they'll probably have replicas ready for that big thing. So people can put that on their wall, as huge as it is. I do like that they went over the top with it, with this whole idea of like just encrusted with all kinds of like stones on it, and just like spare no expense for this is the crown jewel championship. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean a lot of diamonds, a lot of jade.
Yeah.
And I also think that the plating of it is interesting too. And they went for this like kind of a parallelogram than just their circular plates or your it's interesting. It's very interesting. I mean, I like it. I'm not mad at it. And also more importantly, it gives you a reason to watch. Hey, these guys are going to be the first ever champion. Cool. These ladies are going to be the first ever champion. I mean, that's more than enough reason to watch.
Yeah,
I don't know what the rest of the show is going to be, but
yeah, exactly. Who knows? And that's the thing. This is all they've announced so far. So they got time now to figure out how they want to promote this, how they want to hype this up. It's the first time they're doing it. It's come out of nowhere. This to me is not much more different than how Triple H back, before King of the Ring suddenly was like, so we're changing it up. Now King of the Ring will be for the title shots at SummerSlam. It's an added twist that they're adding in.
And you know what it is? And at the end of the day, selfishly, it's daytime wrestling.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Saturday at like 1:00 or something like that, and it's just an opportunity to watch a show that should be better than a regular Raw, not better than a better regular pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not mad at it. And if you miss it, you're not missing anything.
Exactly. It's a special event on Peacock. Don't overthink it. That's all
Right.
it is.
That's
That's
what I do
all
like
it is.
about though.
There we go. All right. Enough talk with WWE since we did that for most of the show here, getting all the latest stuff from them. Let's shift gears to AEW and this weekend. Since this weekend is WrestleDream in Tacoma, Washington, at the Tacoma Dome, of all places. Not Seattle, doing Tacoma this time around. This is an odd show. We've been talking about it recently just because it's been the destination point for this Bryan Danielson title reign. Since he hasn't, we've been like, from the beginning saying he's not in any danger about retiring till we get to WrestleDream. So now here we are. We're at WrestleDream, and I have not been hearing a lot of people hyped up for this one in the last week. So let me run down the card here, what we have so far. Got 2 matches listed for the pre-show: Atlantis Jr. versus Brian Cage for the ROH TV title. The M&M Collection, Mansoor and Mason versus the Acclaimed in a tag match on the pre-show. Then we start the main card: Mark Briscoe versus Chris Jericho for the ROH World title. Darby Allin versus Brody King in a singles match. Jack Perry versus Katsuyori Shibata in a singles match for the TNT title. Will Ospreay, Ricochet, and Konosuke Takeshita in a 3-way for the AEW International Championship. Young Bucks versus Private Party for the tag titles. Mariah May versus Willow Nightingale for the AEW World Women's Championship. Hangman Page versus Jay White in a singles match. Hologram versus the Beast Mortos in a 2 out of 3 falls match. And last but not least, Bryan Danielson defending the AEW title against Jon Moxley. That's a show.
That's
a show, and I just don't really. I look at that and I'm just kind of like, huh?
That's a very good Dynamite.
Yeah, it's a stacked episode of Dynamite. I look at that and I'm like, $50? I don't know about that.
Well, there's that too. I mean, that's now since we're actually talking about pay-per-views, this is kind of the question that we always ask in one form or another. Is this thing worth $50?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer always is, I don't know, or probably not. Now, I do think that this pay-per-view on paper is a lot more interesting to me than their past efforts.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. Again, is it worth $50 for me? No, but if I don't know, I may find myself in a movie theater this weekend or a Dave and Buster's or something like that, and that might be something that I do. But that also depends on what time the game is. If baseball's on. With that said, I don't think that there's a bad match on this card. I don't think that there are any like bathroom break matches, and I would actually going to go out on a limb and say there are a couple of matches that I'm definitely going to be checking up on either live or after the fact, because I do want to know how they end.
Yeah, I'm looking at that card, and the one that jumps out at me is Mariah May and Willow Nightingale. That's what jumps out at me.
100%. I don't think Willow should win now, but I would like to see her win at any point. Mm-hmm. And because Willow for the Women's World Championship, Willow as Women's Champion is the agenda that I will always be on. I will always spearhead that agenda, Willow for champion of every belt for all time. But I also do believe that this is Mariah May's moment, and she's just so much steam, so much momentum. She's got to go with it. I still want to see that match though. I think also the triple threat match, because you can't really call it that, but Ospreay versus Konosuke Takeshita versus Ricochet should be interesting. Ospreay and Ricochet got their indie darling wet dream match out of the way early. Now we
Right.
can move. Now that you got what you came to see, we can move past that. And I really, really, really think that Takeshita is one of those underrated guys, much like Gunther in WWE, who's clearly a champion. So is that an apples to apples comparison? But Gunther for a long time, right there under the surface, rated the bubble. I think Takeshita's at that same spot right now that Gunther was in maybe last year or so, where if not now, then when? Ospreay is the international champion rather. I don't think Ospreay needs a belt to continue his run in AEW. I think Takeshita could use it. Ricochet doesn't need it and certainly doesn't need a belt right now. He just got there. I would like to see him pull that off. And especially since I think they're the same faction, but either way, yeah, would definitely like to see that happen. Give the belt to Takeshita, so that I just think that needs to happen.
The timing is good for that. The timing would be good to go with Takeshita as champ, and I totally agree with you. Ospreay don't need any belt right now. It doesn't matter. He's gonna. The kids are gonna be all about him regardless, with or without a belt.
And he definitely doesn't need a mid-card title.
No,
right.
No, he is a featured attraction right now. That's what he is.
Right.
The kids are gonna watch him. They're all about him. He doesn't need a championship to fill that role right now.
There is no reason why Ospreay couldn't drop the belt and then be elevated into the world title picture, especially since they're not entirely 100% on what Max Friedman's going to be doing. I think he's off to do a movie, or if he's not off now, he will be soon. So, why not? Give the belt to Konosuke, elevate Ospreay, and Ricochet is still Ricochet. Everybody wins.
Yeah. I think the big other match here jumps out at me that I'm curious to see is this Hologram and Beast Mortos doing 2 out of 3 falls. Because I'm looking at that, and with that 2 out of 3 falls part on it, I'm like, if they do this right, all that should be is a Lucha Libre spectacle. You're doing the 2 out of 3 falls, classic Lucha style, and just let them go out there and do their own thing that's got nothing to do with anything else on that show, and just have them do like a Lucha Libre exhibition. Make it completely authentic Mexico style, 2 out of 3, do the thing, and have it be like a special extra match on the show that has nothing to do with anything else.
I wouldn't be surprised if they cut to a different building with a 6-sided ring and they just taped the match at a CMLL show, because that's really
send it in on satellite for Mexico.
Yeah, well, they couldn't have the match in Seattle, so let's go live to Tijuana. And,
hey, why not?
Yeah, okay. But
cut away from the one match and do that.
Yeah, but that's also why I think this card in general is a pretty damn good card. Is there anything on the card that screams must watch though? And I think that's the difference between, sitting at home on a Saturday and going, all right, that's also the length of the show too. For the same reasons why people complain about WWE, if they are complaining about the length of the show, people complain about AEW. More isn't obviously less, and less isn't necessarily more. It's about doing what you will with the time that you have. Do we need 11 matches on this card? And that's kind of the thing about AEW, especially compared to WWE right now, the way they run the pay-per-views. Do we need a Hologram versus Mortos in a 2 out of 3 falls CMLL match on the pay-per-view? Do we need that?
That could easily be on Dynamite or Collision.
Easily. Darby Allin versus Brody King. Other than the intensity of the match that they're going to have, and obviously a hometown crowd for Darby, is that a match that we need at the pay-per-view?
Hell, do we need these ROH title matches on this damn show? There's 2 of them. Now,
well, yeah, right. And what they don't tell you is that you got to charge you'll pay another $8 to see the match, because it's behind the paywall of honor. Is not forgive or forget. But that is a thing. So now that we've crossed out 4 matches, we're down to 7. Now we have a 3.5-hour show.
Yeah.
That's a lot more palatable. And then, of course, if you put those other matches on either Ring of Honor or Collision and Dynamite, now we have a reason to watch Collision and Dynamite. You give Darby Allin versus Brody King, you give them 20 minutes on Dynamite to burn the house down. Okay, now I'm interested. And of course, the ROH matches can go behind the paywall. But now we have a 5-hour long event. That's what it is. Is it Saturday or Sunday? It's Saturday. Yeah.
So we're going to get
So-
college football, all that.
Well, and that's also a thing too.
Playoff
And again,
baseball.
for the people that that are spending their time and their money, I don't have a problem with going to a Buffalo Wild Wings. Okay, I do have a problem going to a Buffalo Wild Wings because their chicken is terrible. But I don't have a problem going to Dave and Buster's and on 15 screens, watching college football, 6 screens watching baseball, and on 2 screens watching the pay-per-view. But outside of that, I think that there are other things that you can do that are just as impactful that won't cost you $50. But I might need to see that. I might need to see that Mariah May versus Willow Nightingale match because I really think that could be an upset.
Yeah, that is the neon sign on there, and yeah, and it's funny because looking at that and coming off that last show where Danielson won the title, where they did the whole thing in Wembley, and here we are now, and it's him and your favorite guy, John Moxley, and it's just like, we said in the beginning, it's like if this, with the whole retirement stip, of course, they're Pacific Northwest, we're like, well, he's not in any danger till he gets to WrestleDream. Where here we are, and I'm just looking at that, and I'm like, I'm honestly looking at that main event, and it's like, if that's it for him, I'm like, that's fine. I'm like, I'm like totally like, I really don't have any investment in that match either way. If he loses it, goes get surgery, okay, that's it. And if Moxley wins it, it doesn't do anything for me either. So I'm just like,
this is also the problem with that match. An article that I have on that I'm looking at right now from Yahoo Sports via Uncrowned. Mm-hmm. The title is, quote, "I am mentally ready," end quote. Bryan Danielson reflects on career, looming retirement ahead of AEW WrestleDream.
Putting the rumors out there already.
So if he's already doing press under the guise of this is his last match, and then in this article he says that how he is, whatever his issues are with his neck or nervous system or whatever he has going on, it's definitely getting worse. It's getting more dangerous to be out there and to not necessarily to wrestle in general, but to wrestle at the quality and the pace that he wants to wrestle.
Right.
If he's saying these things in interviews and we're supposed to take him seriously, other than for nostalgia, I'm not watching the WrestleDream main event because Bryan's going to win. If anything, and if it were an option to do so, I would just turn on the pay-per-view at 11:15 and just watch the last 10 minutes of the match. And then watch him.
See what happens, and that's that.
Yeah, see what happens. They get the 3 count. He loses. He thanks the crowd. He leaves his boots in the ring, hugs his wife and kids, and then they go off the air.
Yeah.
So we know what it is. How do you sell a pay-per-view that way if you're not going to sell it as that?
Right, and also they've been saying the whole time, just his regular in-ring career. They're making it clear he's not going away forever. So it's just like, oh, you're not going to see him for a bit, is what you're saying.
Right, and even if that is the case, and I don't have a problem with Bryan becoming the next Regal or becoming a commentator. I mean, we've seen him in non-wrestling roles flourish.
Yeah.
But do you think that AEW... Okay, let's assume that Bryan loses, and this is the retirement final countdown, pun actually intended. Do you think that, assuming that this is the way it goes out, do you think that booking this match as the end of a typical feud versus booking it as the victory lap, retirement, no matter what happens, I'm gone, do you think AEW dropped the ball in not booking it as a special attraction? You need to be there when history happens as Bryan Danielson wrestles his last match.
Not handling like how they did Sting's retirement.
Or Ric Flair.
This is it. This is the match. This is when it's happening. We're doing it here in, his hometown, blah, 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 or the town he's most synonymous with.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, that might be as part of the thinking that they did that back in March with Sting. they had like, the clear, this is his retirement, blah, blah,
Right.
blah. And they hyped it up, and that was very successful for them.
And
maybe
it
the
doesn't make
thinking
it less
it was
impactful.
it was right. And maybe it's the thinking was it was too soon to go back to that same formula again because it hasn't even been a year. So instead, we do it this way, where once he loses, then he's gone.
But to be fair, is it though? Because they've done the same angle with Christopher Daniels.
Mhm.
And well, hey, if SCU loses, I'm done.
Right.
They lost. He was done. Okay. And that's all that it was. So now that, and we've been saying for the past month and a half, Brian's not losing to WrestleDream, and now the WrestleDream's here. It's less fulfilling than it should be for such a momentous occasion if you're a fan and can appreciate the work of Danielson. So I think that we've seen both sides of it, whether it was the previously announced big send-off to Sting's farewell in Greensboro, or the every match could be his last match type of affair with Christopher Daniels.
Right.
We've seen them do both. One is obviously more successful than the other.
Mm-hmm.
Even though, yes, I am comparing Sting to Christopher Daniels. And yes, you could shoot that a hole in the middle of that theory anyway. Because would Christopher Daniels have gotten a send-off if he announced his retirement match on his birthday? Probably not, because he's not Sting. But Bryan Danielson is Sting. And I do think that it's very possible that he gets, everything. I mean, it's his retirement party. Not just I don't know when my last day of work is going to be, but I know it's going to be soon. And that has nothing to do with my searing hatred of Jon Moxley. I think that Moxley versus Danielson, even though it's not the match that I want to see, because I think Swerve should have been the one, or Darby, or just to keep it Seattle, keep it Pacific Northwest, Kyle O'Reilly, or somebody. Just make it make sense to the fans and him and everybody in the building. But then again, he ran with Moxley in WWE forever. So it's not, that's not insignificant either. So even though I don't like the match, I do understand it. It is what it is. But it just feels like something's missing, especially considering that this is supposed to be a huge deal. And let us know in the comments. Maybe I'm off base. And if I am, let me know. Is this a big deal to you? Especially if you are a legit fan of Danielson. Have you been dreading this day for the past month or two?
Yeah, since
or
Wembley,
6?
have you been counting down the days to
Right.
WrestleDream? This is the end of the road.
If you are that person that, will hug your Bryan Danielson micro buddy a little bit tighter this weekend, what does this match mean to you? And do you think that AEW is giving it the weight that it needs, considering who it is? And I would argue maybe not.
Yeah, that's going to, I think, be the interesting thing to see with how well this show does coming out of it, is how much interest is there actually in this show, considering, like, we talked about this off air before we came on. It's like this past week, Dynamite Title Tuesday, it did not have a lot of viewership. It did not draw a crowd, and that's your go home show for the pay-per-view. And yeah, obviously it's on a different night, and it was out of their time slot because of baseball. It is what it is. It's the hand you're dealt. But still, if that's going to affect, interest in the show this weekend, then that's to me the thing to see. Coming off of Wembley, how much interest is there going to be in WrestleDream? With just
right,
with their
momentum. And how much, and also, but to circle back to the original point, how much of Dynamite's record low ratings last Tuesday night, how much of that is based on the fact that for the go home show for Bryan Danielson's assumed retirement match versus his longtime friend at WWE and Jonathan Moxley, and nobody watched the go home show that leads up to this historic match? How much of that is reflective of the fact that AEW didn't book it that way?
Yeah.
Now, 30 seconds, because we're running out of time here. I'll just say devil's advocate. What if Bryan wins?
Yeah, if we kick the can down the road, then they have a whole other chance again to book his retirement. So,
exactly.
And it's just and that ends being the case. Then this was just another match. It was another pay-per-view main event.
Exactly, because there is still the chance that Bryan could win, it's not that he's incapable of like telling the truth to legitimate media, and he has been, playing into the neck injury to various degrees during these matches. So maybe he's just working us all. And if that, kudos to him, give him an Emmy. But it's still to the point of what if he wins? And
we just kick the handle to Full Gear as the next.
So then we're on the Full Gear watch, and then we go on into the new year. So an interesting situation because Double or Nothing is what, February? No, March, so. May, something like that, Memorial Day ish. I want to say, I want to say Memorial Day. That's 5-6 months away. Will be AEW's biggest show, Memorial Day, wherever it's going to be. Not saying that it has any significance, but obviously all signs point to WrestleDream because of where it is, because of who he's facing. It makes sense to do in the Washington State, let alone Tacoma, which is closer to his hometown than it is to Seattle. So it's makes sense. But then again, it's wrestling. You don't trust wrestlers.
There you go. We shall see. We will be talking about it next week for sure, how this all shook out and if the story is to be continued or not. So look at this. With just the two of us, the 2-man power trip this week, we filled this hour easily and even did some overtime. So you never know. There's always plenty to talk about these days. That is one thing. There's just, if anything, there might be too much going on in wrestling these days. There's just so much to get into on a regular basis now. So let's wrap this thing up for next week. So before I go into the home spiel here, I will hit that contest again because we got this contest going on at Big Gold Belt Media. We'll make the boss man happy here. Alien Romulus digital code giveaway going on at Big Gold Belt Media on X. Just got to hit at Big Gold Belt on your social media platform. 2 lucky people will get to relive the fight or flight rush epic sci-fi thriller that is Alien Romulus. 2 enters, simply repost the pinned tweet at the top of the Big Gold Belt Media page. Follow us, tag a friend, and comment with your favorite alien moment or gift. It's just that simple. Pinned to the top of the Big Gold Belt Media page currently at Big Gold Belt on X. So, folks, each and every Thursday night, we are here chopping up the weekend wrestling in video form, live streaming. The video form lives on YouTube after the fact. If you're interested in audio on your favorite podcast platforms, we have that too. Drops usually later that night, definitely by the next morning, but audio version is also available. But we are always streaming live on YouTube, X, Twitch, all that good stuff each and every Thursday night at 8 p.m. and at biggoldbelt.com/live. As I've been saying, to push this contest across the board on social media, you can follow us at Big Gold Belt, whether it's X, Twitter, Instagram, you name the platform, at Big Gold Belt is where you can find us. And wrestling, movies, comics, and more, it can all be found on the website, biggoldbelt.com. Got all your entertainment stuff captured there. Been mentioning it for the past couple of weeks. We got reviews up of the Dump Matsumoto show, Queen of Villains, got that there. All your movie stuff going on. Like I said, got this contest going on with Alien Romulus. Lots of stuff going on at biggoldbelt.com, wrestling, movies, comics, and more. So check it out. And as we were saying, next Thursday, we will be back here.
One last thing before we go.
Okay, get in here.
Because we're talking movies, Big Gold Belt on Letterboxd, LETTRBOXD, instant reactions, fresh out of the theater. We have the more long form traditional reviews at biggoldbelt.com, but also Big Gold Belt on Letterboxd. Give us a follow, tell a friend, and let's talk some movies over on Letterboxd.
There we go. Always can be found at Big Gold Belt. Like we said, it's wrestling, movies, comics, and more. We don't just talk wrestling, all entertainment got going on here at Big Gold Belt Media, your one-stop shop, so to speak. So until next week, folks, thanks for tuning in. Check out WrestleDream this weekend. We'll see what happens with Bryan Danielson, and we'll talk about it next Thursday night. Until then, stay safe. Thinking of y'all down there in Florida, and we will talk to you next week.
All I really need, that